Well, good morning, everybody. I really appreciate everybody being here this morning. What we're here to talk about is incredibly important. Being 2 years and having the privilege of being your governor, it's about kids, taxes, agriculture, and values. Kids lead the way. And so what we're going to be talking about is really, really important that we protect kids. I don't think there's anything more important that government is supposed to do than to keep us safe. And there's an extraordinary involvement of what takes place within our society. Just last week, I had the opportunity to join Attorney General Hilgers in highlighting the efforts of law enforcement, business, nonprofits, and other organizations to address human trafficking. Hard to believe we have to talk about that in Nebraska. That issue is very much related to the issues we're talking about today when it comes to exposure and use of technology by our kids. Each of the 4 senators here today that are going to speak, on top of the other senators, we're going to speak about specific pieces of legislation that they are introducing in partnership with me. As adults, we certainly have the absolute responsibility to prevent exposure to our children to the things that are not age appropriate. We establish, we establish the appropriate age for tobacco use of tattoos, consuming alcohol, and other adult behaviors. And we do those things because we want to protect our children, and we know that our children do not have the development yet to make the best decisions that they can regret and have irreparable harm. Attorney Generals Hilgers and I are partnering together in this effort to support measures that best protect our youth when it comes to technology and access to the internet. Jonathan Haidt, the author of The Anxious Generation, has said it best when he says we have overprotected our children in the real world while unprotecting them online. I think sometimes in my time frame of being a parent, sometimes I've found myself doing everything in my power to protect my kids from what made me who I am. Let's not get that confused with what we're talking about today. It's really, really important we have our kids learn to become who we are, to go through the things, but the technology world's a whole different thing. That's not the real world. I'd like to introduce Attorney General Hilgers, and appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Governor, appreciate it. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. First, I want to thank the governor for all his work. Since day one of his administration, he's been a stalwart defender of Nebraska children. He has his own inspiring life story as a dad in Nebraska, and I'm very proud to be defending Nebraska children and standing side by side with the governor and these senators on the bills that are being brought forward and will be outlined before you this morning. So thank you, Governor, for all the work and your leadership. As I can tell you, as a dad of 4 little kids, it feels like today is as hard to be a parent as any other day in history, given all of the pressure and stress, especially from the digital and online world. And I think these bills that you'll find today are incredibly important to defend children at this moment in time where leadership is needed at the policy level. So thank you, Governor, and thank you to the senators. I'm going to briefly just introduce two of the bills that are being brought today, one by Senator Hart and one by Senator Sanders, but that attack this problem, this intersection between child safety and the digital environment from 2 different directions. The first from Senator Hardin. We see in the law enforcement world, we all know as parents, as Nebraskans, that child sexual material is abhorrent, it's a crime, it's something that we should punish, we shouldn't tolerate. Well, unfortunately, in this day and age of AI, where you can generate materials, you can generate deep fakes, things that really play off of the image and likeness of a child, but is actually maybe not what we would normally think of as CSAM under the current definition of the law. People who would spread this type of material might be able to operate outside of the law by creating deep fakes of children. And that this bill from Senator Hardin is meant to put a stop to that, to make sure that that is not acceptable in the state of Nebraska. So the first bill from Senator Hardin is to give law enforcement the tools to help protect children in the state from that type of AI deepfake material. The second is from Senator Sanders, and this relates to cell phones in schools. Governor Pillen mentioned Jonathan Haidt. If you have not read the book Anxious Generation, I would encourage everyone to go pick up a copy and read it as quickly as you can. It is eye-opening, but it also confirms what any parent knows today, which is social media and cell phones in the hand of young people are fueling a mental health crisis in our state. We know the data. You may remember just a few months ago, we filed a lawsuit against TikTok because of the impact that some of these social media companies are having on children. In fact, just last Friday, we won our motion to dismiss against TikTok, so that case will be heard in Lancaster County Court. We know cell phone use, and we know social media in particular are fueling a mental health crisis in Nebraska, and in particular, not only, but in particular, young girls. We know it's driving mental health issues, depression, anxiety, body dysmorphia, suicidal ideation, suicide. It is wreaking havoc on children all around the state, and it's a difficult problem for a parent, and I speak from experience, to be able to attack and defend, because it can be very hard when there is pressure from peers or from friends. Everyone's got their cell phone. How do you manage cell phone use for children, and how do you do it at school? We know that increased cell phone use at school has decreased grades, it's increased mental health issues, it's created a lot of problems in schools. And so we want to break through the collective action problem and set rules of the road to ensure that schools are a cell phone free zone for young people. And so the bill that Senator Sanders is bringing is to do it the Nebraska way, which is not just to say one size fits all, but it's to require the Department of Education, the state of Nebraska, to put forth policy and guidelines to ensure that every school has their own policy that restricts the use of cell phones in their school, while taking into account various reasonable exceptions. So if parents need to get a hold of children, if they need to have a cell phone for their own medical use or the like, we're enabling schools to be able to create a solution that fits with their school individually. But I gotta tell you, when I talk to parents and we talk about this concept, uniformly, people want these devices out of the hands of their children so that they can learn at school, not be the subject of cyberbullying, not be distracted, not have these mental health issues, to be able to protect them when they're at school, when they're supposed to be in a safe place, when they're supposed to be learning. So those are the two bills, the two of the bills that I wanted to preview for you here today. And with that, I'll give it back to the governor.
Thank you, Mike. I think that the other thing that's really important for me to say is what a privilege it is to partner with all the senators in the unicameral. Most Nebraskans have no idea how hard everybody works. I think that I've seen most of the senators here since the election working every day and being ready for the session and doing the people's work. So really, really incredible. And quite honestly, this is probably a topic that not all of us are terribly comfortable talking about. Some people might be talking about infringing and so forth. The bottom line is we really, really have to stand up and protect our kids, and I think this is really important. So I'd like to turn it over and thank Senator Sanders for being comfortable, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. So come on up. Thank you, dear.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you, Governor and Attorney General Hilgers and their teams respectfully for their work on this bill. We know how distracting our cell phones can be. Not all of us know fully how much of the impact that it has on our schools. For example, we know that the phone usage has been found to correlate with lower test scores. Our kids and our future, and we can hold, and we should show maximizing what we should be doing for our children is maximizing their learning. This bill supports local control principles. Many school districts, such as Bellevue Public School in my district, have already put in place cell phone policies, and we want to work hand in hand with them. I believe that students deserve the best possible chance to succeed, and removing unnecessary distraction is an important step in ensuring that they can reach their full potential. I am committed to supporting policies that prioritize the well-being and academic growth of every student. By removing electronic communication devices from the classroom, we can create an environment free from distractions, allowing both teachers and students to fully succeed. I look forward to sharing more of our committee at the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Thank you. I think that sometimes there could be a couple really easy statements that we can't forget when we talk about what Senator Sanders is talking about. You know, no phones bell to bell. No phones bell to bell. Another simple one. This isn't going to make anybody really happy, but we really ought to think about it, and we obviously can't legislate it. But no phones in bed. You know, seriously, grandparents, parents, if you're allowing your child to take a phone to bed, you're absolutely hampering that child with extraordinary development. That's not Pillen talking. That's pure science out there. Tough to legislate, but parents and grandparents got to step up and say no. It's really important. I think that when we talk about legislation, Senator Hardin will be visiting with you about Child Pornography Prevention Act and the bad things that go there. And I'm really, really grateful, Senator Hardin, for your work and stepping forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Governor. We're very pleased to partner with the Governor's office on protecting children and penalizing any attempt to use artificial intelligence to create, alter, or produce any image or video that depicts the sexual exploitation of a child. This bill catches the law up with the technology. Currently, state law does not clearly define or prohibit the digital manipulation or production of pictures or video that depict digitally created or altered images of child pornography. This bill opens an avenue for law enforcement to further child exploitation investigations and hold those accountable who choose to manipulate photos and videos to exploit children. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hardin. Next will be Senator Bosin, and she's created Age-Appropriate Online Design Code Act. This legislation will protect minors in our state from being taken advantage of by the addictive nature of social media sites and applications. Thank you, Senator Bosin.
Thank you, and good afternoon. So my piece of legislation is the Age-Appropriate Design Code. This code prioritizes the best interests of children by ensuring safer online spaces for our kids. As our digital spaces are changing every day and children have access to them at younger and younger ages, it is important to consider the privacy and protection of children in the design of digital products and services that children are likely to access. By requiring these protections, this legislation gives parents and children the ability to have control over the child's private information through accessible and easy-to-use tools without undermining the First Amendment. This bill puts the best interests of children over company profits. This bill is directed towards the design of those social media applications and not the content that is placed on them. This bill says algorithms shouldn't track children. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Bosin. And next is legislation that Senator Storr is bringing forth, creates parental rights in social media. The act requires social media companies to verify parental consent to allowing a minor to create a social media account. Thank you, Senator Storr.
Good afternoon, and I want to thank the Governor as well for standing strong on these issues protecting children. The debate about social media's impact on children is quite frankly over, and the evidence is clear. We see ongoing rises in mental health, anxiety, depression, more self-harm, and more suicidal ideation. If we fail to act, then we're failing an entire generation. These are not just numbers, but they're impacting real lives, real families, and we're putting futures at risk. At the governor's request, I will be introducing legislation that will require meaningful age verification to open a social media account. Minors will then be required to have parental consent to open a social media account. Parents must approve a minor's access to ensure transparency and privacy protection as well. This legislation, we're calling this parental rights in social media. Just as a parent must consent for a child to get their ears pierced, it should also be required for access to platforms that collect personal data and expose children to potential harm. Protecting kids is the #1 goal. Social media poses inherent risks, and parents deserve the tools to make informed decisions about their children's online safety. I have heard from multiple parents, and when we visit about this issue, it's almost a look of pleading in their eyes. Please help us. Please help give us the tools to supervise our children from being bullied, being exposed to harmful content, and have access to the data that they need to properly supervise their children. The issue is also personal. It's about safeguarding the mental health and the future of all of the children of Nebraska. So by taking this step, we can ensure Nebraska families have the power to protect their kids in today's digital world. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Storer. I was just thinking while the senators were talking, if I was king for the day, I'd move the clock back about 25 years and make sure the only phone a kid had was a flip phone, and they wouldn't be able to text, they wouldn't be able to say anything, they'd be able to communicate. Anybody against that? All right, we're open for questions. Go ahead.
I would ask about Senator Store's bill, when you say minors, do you mean up to 18?
If you repeat the question.
Yeah, the question was what minors means, and yes, it would be 18 and under.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is for Senator Harden relating to your bill. So obviously going after the people creating, using AI to create these deepfake videos and images makes sense. But does your bill also target the companies or websites using AI or the AI company itself for allowing those images to be created?
Yes. In a word, in a nutshell, in all 50 states, adults on children when it comes to porn is against the law. Possession, creation, distribution. What we find is across the U.S., only Idaho has anything in the way of kids on kids with this sort of language and concept. And so in looking at that creation and distribution part in particular, you're talking about entities. And so since we're talking about entities, how do kids get this information out there? And so I think if you're guilty as an entity, you're going to face consequences. Thanks.
Thanks, Senator. Andrew?
The question is, are these enforceable? The answer is absolutely, Andrew. First of all, the CSAM bill from Senator Harden, we already have laws in place on that. In terms of child pornography as it is, there's 12 other states that have done CSAM in the AI context. The deep fake, these deep fake type generative issues are something you've seen other states put in place and enforce. I don't think there's any problem there. Of course, when it comes to the schools, I don't think there's any problem with the state of Nebraska requiring a policy to not allow students to have cell phones during the day. I don't think that's anything that would be objectionable. In terms of Senator Storer's bill or the algorithm-based bill, those are both things that are well within the state's enforcement authorities. If you think about the examples that the governor mentioned, the state can restrict access to all sorts of harmful goods from minors, alcohol, cigarettes. use of a cell phone and social media is just one of those things. And let me just say why it's so important for Senator Stohr's bill in particular. What these social media companies are doing are absolutely horrendous. They are going to kids and they're going to parents and they are saying that our sites are safe. That's what they're saying. TikTok has said, hey, these are family-friendly sites. If you come on TikTok and you're 13 years old, you will not have any access to any of this inappropriate content. Things that do drive suicide or suicidal ideation, things that do drive body dysmorphia, things that do encourage drug use. And they know, and we know, that it is absolutely false. It is absolutely false. We are trying to hold them accountable in state court right now, but the way to get at this problem at its root level is to ensure that they can't profit off our kids. And the way to ensure that they can't profit off our kids is by passing Senator Boson's bill, which will ensure they can't do it through their algorithms, and by passing the age restriction bill. So all of them are absolutely are lawful, Andrew. And so if there's any particular tweak that need to be made to ensure that during the committee process, I'm sure the senators will have that be done.
Andrew?
For Attorney General Hilgers, I mean, I know you're saying that it's lawful. I guess, has that been tested elsewhere? Are these laws in place in any states?
So the question from Andrew Wegley is whether or not these laws have been tested in other states. I have not seen any challenge to these types of laws that have been successful. I'm not saying there hasn't been. I mean, I would tell you the CSAM law in particular, I haven't seen anything. I'd be surprised if there was one. Certainly any challenge to the policy that we're trying to put in place for the schools, I can't imagine that would be something that would be challenged. You have seen some challenges to non-child-based restrictions to, say, pornography companies. Nebraska just passed a bill last year, or maybe the year before, from Senator Merman. There have been challenges to those types of bills, largely those challenges in the adult context, so we're not even talking about restrictions on minors. Those have been not successful, and states have been able to regulate. A lot of times it's to what degree they are actually having, in those cases, sort of the identification, are they requiring people to actually give a specific ID, something like that. So there have been some challenges on the margins on these types of issues. I think generally it reinforces our conclusion that the state can enforce these things.
Senator Sanders, you said that Bellevue already has policy and many districts do, and your bill would simply have the department tell districts that they had to have a policy. Is there a problem now with districts that are having problems with student use of cell phones, and the problem is that they haven't adopted a policy?
So the question is on policy making on cell phone uses and if there have been any difficulties. And I say that's why they have already started to implement this in their schools, because they've seen a problem on a very, very local level, right? They'll make those decisions at their school board level. But also when I'm in the grocery store and I run into people that I either don't know or know, and I ask them what they think of this and how that will affect them as a student, a mom and their student. And they are thrilled to get rid of the distraction. I also run into...
They ask their local school board to enact a policy.
So that's exactly, I believe, what happened at Bellevue Public School, right? But when that teacher teaches in Bellevue Public School, she sees the difference. When she substitutes teach at another school, there's a big difference. And that's what I'm hearing in the grocery store. It needs to be at the local level, needs to be with the school board, but they need to implement it because of the distraction on both sides of the teacher being able to teach and the child needing to learn.
You mind if I add to that, Senator Sanders? So two pieces to that, Fred. It's a good question. So the first piece is that, first, there are some schools that have implemented policies that I think get the job done. In other words, no cell phones, no access to social media at all. You come in, you drop it in the bucket, you don't have access to it. Two problems. One, that a lot of schools, if they do have policies, are not doing it, I think, in the way that I think would have the maximum needed impact. So they might have a policy that says, yeah, you can have your cell phone, but just don't pull it out in class. Well, we know, at least anecdotally, if not empirically, that type of a policy is not successful because kids are bringing it out in class. You need to actually have it taken away. So the first thing is there are a lot of schools that don't have the right, actually, what I believe the policy impact for these kids. The second problem is, even if there are some schools that are doing it, we have a couple hundred school districts across the state of Nebraska. We need to do this today. We can't wait, in my view, organically, to wait for a lot of these schools. How many generations of kids are going to have to go through and be harmed by their time in high school or grade school having access to social media when we could act today? And I think part of the problem is this collective action problem that I discussed, which is there's a lot of people, there are parents, there are people who want this type of restriction, but not everyone wants to step out and stand up for it because there's an enormous amount of pressure to let kids have these types of phones, at least with amongst peer groups. And so what we need to do is not wait for this to be organic. This is urgent. We need to act now, and we need to have these policies be policies that actually do something meaningful for children, not be policies that are sort of half-baked.
Maybe I'll pile on to it as well. Honestly, I apologize to the people in Nebraska. We should have done this 2 years ago. This should have been done day one of being governor of Nebraska. As Attorney General Hilgers, hoping this takes place across all the schools in Nebraska is not a very good plan. We'll make it through. I have full confidence in all of our senators and the people where we get the language correct so it stands the test of time. One more question and we'll call it. Yes, Aaron?
For Senator Storer, with your bill, how are parents going to be giving their consent for their children to use social media? And how are you going to ensure that kids just can't say that they're their parent and get away with it?
Exactly. So her question was, how will parents be required to verify that they indeed are the parents, correct? And we're providing sort of a buffet of options that are all legally acceptable that will be outlined in the bill. And then to add to that, in terms of enforceability, the bill is also going to include civil penalties for companies that are not complying with this, to make sure that they understand that there are consequences as well.
How much are the civil penalties? Do you have down yet how much the civil penalties are?
Pardon me?
How much are the civil penalties?
Right now, I think we have them at $2,500 per incident. But when you start looking at how many, if it's a company that's not enforcing this and how many accounts, that will add up quite quickly.
Okay, let me thank all the senators and everybody for being here. This is an important issue, and we expect this to take place and have bipartisan support. So appreciate everybody being here today. Thank you.
Hey guys, Jacqueline Fernandez here at the Alert Center. We were just listening to Governor Jim Pillen chat a little bit about a series of bills that are going to be discussed and released and talked about and highlighted for some time regarding the impacts of social media and cell phone use in schools, at home, just et cetera, et cetera. So that was the news conference. Clearly that has ended in the box to my right. And we'll kind of head over here and just kind of wanted to give you just, a brief review of what we just heard. So if you are just joining us, this is the story that is top story on our website now, firstalert6.com. Let me just review that and make sure that that is all accurate. Yes, it is. So yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about, just what exactly we were doing today. So announcing new legislation to protect kids online. So that is basically the gist of it. Attorney General Mike Hilgers was there and introducing a trio of bills from various senators. So this is something that we are keeping a very close eye on. So this is, 4 senators spoke this afternoon about specific pieces of legislation that they are introducing in partnership, of course, with the governor. So one would establish an appropriate age for social media use. And again, the idea is to protect our children. So, senators gave examples like we do have appropriate ages in place in our society for things like alcohol and cigarette purchases. So this would be one of those ideas. Hilgers also said after the governor spoke to talk about leadership is needed at these policy levels. So this is what they're doing. They're not really sitting around and waiting. They are getting this done ASAP. So that was a big thing that they talked about, they also chatted about just the mental anguish that is taking place due to these cell phones in the school area. People talked about this is becoming and is getting worse, this health crisis here in Nebraska, so something to talk about there. Body dysmorphia, a lot of depression, and decreased grades in the learning environment, right? So these are all things that they are talking about, and they said with those health crises, this is something that they're noticing especially in young girls versus young boys. So something to talk about there. Now, this second bill that was introduced, as far as having cell phones in the schools, they really want this to be down to each district, right? So each school will have the option to decide what best practices are for their specific district. So we were told by Senator Sanders that Bellevue already has a policy in place. It seems to be working. She was also chatting a little bit just about how these decisions again need to be made in their local areas. So what works for one school may not work for another school, et cetera. So that is something to discuss as well in another bill that's being put on the table. So basically it's just removing these unnecessary distractions. And Governor Pillen did say, quote, no phones bell to bell. So whether you have to just kind of, you step through the door of the school, you throw your phone in a certain bin or something, whatever they decide to do, no phones bell to bell. Senator Hardin was talking about a new bill penalizing any attempt to create a sexual video that's either digitally created video or altered images of child pornography. So this is something that he clearly stands by, and he says, we will prosecute you if you are choosing to use these AI images, et cetera, to exploit children and make that accessible for children online as well. Senator Bosnin talked about age-appropriate decisions. So these different codes, I think that we see when we go to certain websites. She said the design of websites, some of those designs are really geared to get you to come in and click on different things, and for children that might not be the best thing. So she was talking about, this bill would protect the design of websites for children and not necessarily the content of the website. So I should say that. Let's see. Also, another bill that was mentioned requiring age verification to be able to download a certain, social media. So like if you are a minor, 18 and under, you would need parental consent. So this is putting the place back in the hands of the parents, giving parents a little bit more control over what platform they do or do not want their child to take part in. And that was pretty much the gist of this. And one of the questions that was brought up by a reporter in the room, I wasn't sure which reporter, but this person said, so how can parents verify that they're really the parents, right? So they have pretty much, it's seemingly without having read the actual legislation, but it seems that they're really looking into this, kind of digging a little deeper under the surface, trying to say at this point that they say, they have addressed that issue. And at this point, it's $2,500 per incident. So this is something that could add up very quickly depending on the cases at hand. But that was our Governor Pillen's news conference, basically in a nutshell, talking about protecting our children, so the impacts of digital technology, including social media, smartphones, and the use of artificial intelligence. So that's what we were chatting about and taking a listen in here at First Alert 6. And again, just want to let you know, you can always head to our website for more information on this story and several others. That is firstalert6.com, and that continues to be our top story. So if you want to watch this video in its entirety, you can click on this story and it'll take you there, and you can do just that. In the meantime, though, I will just keep it on our homepage for now. But also wanted to chat a little bit about weather, right? So weather, how is it looking out there? What is the actual weather going to be like, as I try to get one of these cameras in here for you? Okay. So yeah, so we're excited about weather now. Again, always really thankful as we take a mini live look over my shoulder here at from our Blackstone camera that Senior Chief Meteorologist Rusty Lord always does his due diligence and gets me everything I need to kind of give you a little bit more information about what the pros are saying the weather will be like today. So Rusty says today mostly sunny, a high of 26. Let's take Blackstone full screen here, and you can really see that sunshine kind of poking through, so that's a good thing. Mostly sunny, high of 26, so it's still cold out there. Tonight, cloudy, at 30% chance of snow. He anticipates mostly north, less than half an inch if you get any snow. So a low of 4, that is chilly. I'll be in my footy pajamas for sure. As we look ahead into Tuesday, mostly sunny and cold out there. Here's a live look from our Children's Nebraska cam. So it looks like traffic is flowing smoothly out there. The roads look clear. Everything looks legitimate today, so that's good. So yeah, Tuesday mostly sunny and cold, a high of 20, and then Wednesday decreasing clouds with a high of 35. So this is something to take note of as well. and a quick look over at 144th and Dodge. So Rusty does anticipate the next Monday and Tuesday are going to be first alert weather days, so something to take note of there. Again, this could all change, so you really want to stay tuned for our broadcasts with our meteorologists to kind of give you the 411. They do have the very latest and greatest information available at their fingertips, but as of right this second, next Monday and Tuesday are considered first alert weather days. Rusty says the coldest air of the season is set to move in. The coldest day is likely Monday. Either morning could be our first time dipping below 0. So, don't put those coats away just yet. Wind chills make it close to -20 in some spots. So if, you're a parent and your kids are heading back to school on Tuesday, this next Tuesday, this is something to take note of as well. Now, in the meantime, just want to say thank you so much for joining us at the Alert Center, and we will have all your news available for you again at firstalert6.com and on our broadcasts. So please do join us for our broadcast coming up at 3. Until then, bundle up and enjoy the sunshine.